Hello, my name's Mitchell, and this is part of our lockdown story. So, lockdown for me was sort of a roller coaster of emotions. It had many ups and many downs. Felt very secluded inside my own place, not being able to see family and friends, with the underlying fear of, is the world going to end? Am I going to die? God knows. It had its ups and its downs for me. I was battling my mental health, talking to family, and it did make the times really hard. But one thing that happened for me was that I got the opportunity of a lifetime when I'd always wanted to be a tree surgeon. And as the trade started to crumble with lockdown, there had suddenly become so many opportunities that were given to me. And I actually found myself in work throughout lockdown, working with trees in emergency situations. And it opened a whole load of opportunities for me to progress my life slightly further. So although there was the underlying worry throughout lockdown and stress and worrying about family, I did actually have quite a bonus that come out of it, and it made me feel quite good. I enjoyed it, and I'm still a tree surgeon today, 3.5 years going. It's sort of taken over my life. So without lockdown, I don't think I would have had that opportunity to be where I am today, which is quite an interesting thought.
I think lockdown was just a case of we had the first 2 weeks off, and then we went back to work like normal, except my other job, I work at a shop, so we were behind closed doors. We had our website, we had a lot of customers that could call in and still order what they wanted, so work at the florist was normal, and work was normal gardening as well because we worked outside, so we continued on. A lot of our customers were old, so they were really grateful we came. It was useful using the furlough scheme as well, especially when it rained. We did take advantage of that a little bit, but that was probably the most I got out of lockdown. It seemed everyone else got a good few months off paid, and we just went back to work.
Carried on as normal, didn't we?
We just carried on.
As such.
Yeah.
Which was really lucky, to be honest, because there was many people out there that had nothing, and they were sat there, they were worrying about their jobs. People were getting laid off, made redundant, and it wasn't very fair. And we were so lucky in that sense to still be out in nature, submersing ourselves and still being able to get on with life as if nothing had happened. And I just remember the most surreal thing would be walking home from work and there being no one on the streets whatsoever. And you were sort of walking around this wasteland like it was a new film that had just come out or something. It was very bizarre.
Yeah,
but I mean, we were so lucky to still be out there in the world while everyone was locked away. And I think that definitely played a massive part in our mental health. And I think that without that, it could have gone a completely different way, and that we could have ended up so depressed. And I don't know, we're very outgoing people. So the idea of restrictions, you're not allowed to see your friends, you're not allowed to go outside, was terrifying at first. Yeah. Really terrifying.
I mean, we were lucky that we'd moved into this place about a year before lockdown. So we were like, two of our friends were like, come stay with us, be in our bubble. So it was very much like, you know, I never really did the uni experience, but it was almost like being at uni and having mates and having a house share, which was all very fun. A bit reckless.
Very reckless. We evolved together. So at the beginning of lockdown, me and my now partner, originally we weren't dating, and lockdown sort of brought us together, and it brought us a lot closer. And I think after a few months of being in total lockdown, we sort of just formed this relationship, which we've carried on since then.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is questionable whether if lockdown didn't happen, would it have happened? It probably would have done, but it sort of brought us so much closer together. Where we weren't working, we just spent every single day together in each other's company, and it did bring us a lot closer.
Yeah.
Massively.
Yeah.
Well, we're still going today out of lockdown, so something happened and it was right.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as soon as they're like, you can go on exercises and you can go for long walks and stuff, we were taking the bikes up to Capel and stuff. We were really active. I
don't think I'd ever travelled so far in my life.
not on a bike, no.
So we were going up to Elam, biking back from Elam, and just using that 2 hours of exercise a day, just really pushing it to the limits, going to the Warren. Yeah. Sort of almost looking at your clock and thinking, every second counts, we've got to do this.
Yeah, and we were getting into a lot of the same things at the same time, so we were both getting out our identification books and just really...
We submerged ourselves in nature so much.
Yeah, and the funny thing is as well, we had a lot of work outside during COVID and lockdown and stuff, but actually because of the cost of living now, work's drying up.
It's drying up more and more. Yeah, it's quite interesting for me with work, being a tree surgeon. There was so much work during lockdown because almost we were classed as an emergency service, so we were able to work. But the jobs that we were doing were for customers in their garden because they had all this time now, this free time to focus on their garden, and they decided this is what I'm going to put my money into. So we would go around to their houses, do their work for them, not seeing them or interacting with them, and then disappear. And now after lockdown's finished and the cost of living's going up and up, work is drying out. And there's not as much now because people are so focused on their gardens, and now people are so focused on, will I be able to feed my family for the next few weeks? So it's amazing to see the adverse effects.
Really bizarre.
It is scary.
I guess most of our interaction with the local community was just customer based, and everyone was wanting to stop and chat, especially working at the flower shop and working in such a point in town which everyone walks their dogs past that way. It's a Folkestone beauty spot really, so all our regulars still come by and talk to us in the doorway and stuff, with obviously a couple of metres apart.
I remember during lockdown, once we were allowed our exercise, and we used to stumble down the Warren, and I remember we'd done 3 or 4 trips to the Warren, and it suddenly struck me in my mind, and it was horrible. There was so much rubbish everywhere.
Oh, it was awful.
And we just decided, because we had this time, this exercise time, and work was drying up sort of, and we had all this free time on our hands that we weren't your hour a day, but we ended up taking some rubbish bags down to the beach, and we ended up litter picking.
Yeah.
And we did that quite a few times, but it's something that lockdown really pushed you to appreciate what you have in front of you, nature especially, and everything in the outside world that was stripped away from us. And I think having them moments of submerging yourself back into the outside world, we sort of realised we took it for granted a lot, and everyone has. So we did have them days where we just started litter picking down the beach, and we'd take these bags and fill up 4 or 5 rubbish bags and just drop them off at the bins because we felt like we were doing the right thing.
Yeah.
We wouldn't sort of communicate with anyone, but it's something that just randomly happened.
Well, it's when we ended up on the other side of the Warren, we were at Sunfire Home, we bumped into other litter pickers. Do you remember? Yeah,
we did bump into other litter pickers as well. I would say that lockdown had an effect on the way that our minds perceived the outside world. And for me especially, it made me feel so much more grateful for what is there.
Definitely.
And it makes you appreciate more what's going on.
Forced you to slow down a bit, for sure.
Especially our generation growing up, for instance, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, they've experienced war and blackouts, and they've had to lock themselves inside. Just seems so alien for us, for that actually happened to us as well, in such a, not a war, but we had to stay locked in to protect our country, to protect our people and the elderly people. And it just felt so surreal that anything can happen. I guess you come out of it a better person, I'd like to think. It definitely played with our brains.
You definitely sort of have moments where you just sit there and go, is this the world ending?
Yeah.
Surely not, because about 10 years ago they said the world was going to end.
Scary thought.
But they might be ending now, you never know, with the war in Russia and Ukraine, the cost of living, energy prices going up. Definitely noticing with the energy prices going up, the change in stock we get in the flower shop. The growers can't keep the greenhouses going, so the flowers get more expensive, and it's a luxury, and it's becoming an expensive luxury. So even in the flower shop, despite people still buying flowers for their loved ones, it's not happening so much.
I think one thing that happened is we all become so comfortable with our modern lives, and then having this lockdown, especially in the UK where we are quite privileged, having this lockdown to occur opens my eyes to think anything's possible now. Give it 20 years, give it 30 years. We all think we're so safe and away from harm these days since the wars are over, but anything could happen. And give it 20 years, there might be a new outbreak, and we might just be straight back down into a new lockdown.